My boyfriend looked at me and said his heart belonged to someone else. And in that moment, something inside me broke. But the worst part wasn't losing him. It was realizing she had never really left. His ex was still there. The whole time. And somehow I was the only one who didn't see it. We had only been together for a few months. But everything already felt real. Until things started to change. I felt something was wrong before anything even happened. It was a quick warning, the kind your body gives without asking for permission. A small chill down my neck, a sensation that didn't fit anywhere. Noah and I had been together for 2 or 3 months, long enough to become a habit, but not long enough to call it love. Even so, that discomfort refused to leave. We met at a crowded party, low lights, music way too loud. He brushed against my shoulder by accident and apologized with a laugh, the kind of smile that brightens whatever is messy inside you. I wasn't looking for anything serious. I wanted to have fun, go out, live everything college promised. But the way he looked at me pulled me in fast, without effort. It felt good to be seen like that. It felt good to be wanted like that. Noah was more in love than I was. He texted me in the middle of the afternoon asking if I was okay, if I needed coffee, if I wanted company. I would laugh about it with my friends, saying he was way too into me to ever give me trouble. It was comfortable believing that, comfortable thinking I was in control, comfortable until the day he shattered that illusion. The message arrived without warning. Jade is back. I read it 5 times trying to understand if I had missed a chapter somewhere. Jade who, back from where? Why did he think I needed to know? I asked and he only said she was someone he used to know. Just like that. As if he hadn't just dropped a shadow over both of us. I tried not to care. But my body noticed everything. My stomach tightened. My hands turned cold. I adjusted my clothes for no reason, as if they suddenly didn't fit me anymore. It was ridiculous to feel threatened by a name, but my insecurity was never rational. It was intense and alive and impossible to hide. The confirmation came days later at a massive party near campus. The music was too loud, and the smell of drinks mixed with cheap perfume clung to everyone. Noah grabbed my waist quickly and said he wanted to introduce me to some friends. When we reached the group, he said that was Lauren and the other one was Brianna, Jade's sisters. I felt the impact before I understood why. Both of them looked at me like they were scanning every detail of my body. My clothes, my hair, my expression. One of them raised an eyebrow. The other gave a smile way too short to be polite. The look they exchanged stung like a slap. My face burned. And I could tell they knew something about me that I didn't know. Noah kept talking to them as if nothing was happening. He didn't notice my discomfort. He didn't notice the tension. He didn't notice how those girls cut through me. And in that moment, I realized I wasn't the one at the center of that group. Jade was, even though she wasn't there. That's when his best friend Ethan showed up. He looked at me like I was a mistake. He looked away with a silent kind of disgust, as if he was bothered that I was standing in a place he believed belonged to someone else. The rejection felt almost physical. I just didn't know that weeks later he would drop to his knees in the middle of a club begging for forgiveness. That night, nothing made sense. Not the sisters' looks, not the message about Jade, not Ethan's irritation, not the strange weight in my chest. All I knew was that Jade's name had entered my story. And before I even realized it, I was already losing control of how I felt. The 2 weeks after the party felt strangely normal. Daily texts, quick meetups, kisses that felt exactly like before. I held on to those details as if they were proof, as if nothing had changed, as if her name wasn't stuck in my throat every time I breathed. I pretended everything was fine, even while my body screamed that it wasn't. Noah was still sweet. He still sent good morning texts and asked if I was eating right, but something in his tone had faded. His replies grew shorter, colder, more distant. I tried not to notice, but my body noticed before I did. It was like watching someone slowly turn off the lights. He started going out with his friends more often. He said he needed to relax, that he was tired, that he'd be out just for a bit. I smiled and said it was fine, that I understood, but every time he canceled our plans, something inside me folded in on itself. I felt small, trying to keep a normal that no longer existed, trying to hold sand in a closed hand. When he finally ended things, it was through a text, a short, cold sentence with no emotion. I don't want to keep going like this anymore. A hot shock ran through my body as if the floor had disappeared beneath me. I called him right away, but he didn't pick up. The call dropped straight into his silence. I called his parents' house because I needed an explanation. When he answered, his voice sounded tired, irritated, distant. I asked if we could talk in person, and he said no. He said things just weren't working anymore, as if it were simple, as if I wasn't shattering on the other side of the line. And that was the exact moment I realized how deeply I cared for him. Too late for anything. Too late to save my dignity. Too late to hide the desperation rising in me. Even after breaking up, he kept messaging me. Sometimes sweet, sometimes ice cold, pulling me close and pushing me away in the same day. The day after the breakup felt like an empty room, as if someone had turned the sound off the world. I would wake up and forget for a second that he was gone. Then I'd remember, and my chest would sink all over again. I tried to go through my day as if things were normal, but even brushing my teeth felt heavy. It was as if my own body had become a difficult place to live in. I kept telling myself he wasn't that important, that I was strong, that 2 or 3 months weren't enough to destroy anyone. But every time I picked up my phone, his name burned on the screen. I didn't know if I wanted him to answer or if silence would hurt less. Both options cut the same way. He kept talking to me, but always in a way that left me confused. One day he was sweet, as if he still cared. The next he was cold, as if he had forgotten my name. When I asked what had happened, he dodged the question and said he didn't know how to explain. I believed him because I didn't know what else to do. The worst part was realizing I had only started truly liking him after I lost him. It felt like the breakup had awakened a feeling I'd been too scared to admit before. I couldn't accept that I understood it too late, or that he had moved on so fast. I walked around campus trying to look normal, but the feeling of abandonment clung to my skin. Every time a mutual friend avoided my eyes or changed the subject, the sense of being left behind grew a little more. Their silence said more than any explanation. One night, exhausted from thinking, I decided I didn't want to suffer anymore. But the moment my phone buzzed and his name lit up the screen, I ran straight back to Hope. A short message saying he had been thinking about me was enough to make my heart explode and collapse at the same time. I was trapped in a cycle that pulled me in and pushed me away without care. And somewhere deep down, I already knew this was only the beginning of the worst phase. The weeks after the breakup were a constant mess. Noah talked to me as if nothing had happened. One day he said he missed me. The next he disappeared without warning. I stayed glued to my phone, waiting for any message that gave me air. He fed me crumbs of affection with surgical precision, and I held on to every one of them as if they were promises. That was when Jade started to appear. Never directly, never by saying my name. First a random comment on one of his photos, then a strategic like, then a tag that felt vaguely provocative. Every detail seemed calculated to hurt me without touching me. I didn't even know her last name until then. But when I saw her comment about how perfect the movie night had been, everything snapped into place. The truth pierced through me like hot metal. I opened her profile. It was private. Only one profile picture staring back at me in a pink bikini I would never have the courage to wear. I started refreshing the page compulsively, as if the universe would hand me answers if I insisted enough. And it did. She opened her profile, on purpose, for me to see, for it to hurt, for me to know exactly where I wasn't enough. The photos loaded slowly, as if Instagram enjoyed stretching my pain. Thin body, confident posture, ordinary face, almost ugly. The combination knocked the air out of me. I laughed for a second, then hated myself immediately after. But the worst was still coming. One random night, in the middle of another ambiguous conversation, Noah wrote something that destroyed whatever was left of me. He said his mind told him to stay with me, but his heart told him to stay with Jade. My chest collapsed so fast I thought I would faint. It was the final blow to the version of me that was still standing. I stared at the screen, feeling something fracture quietly inside, and I had no idea that this was the moment I would cross a line I never thought I'd touch. The moment that would lead me to test Jade myself and find out how far she was willing to go. The days after Noah's message blurred into something I couldn't hold. I woke up tired, even when I slept. My chest felt heavy and hollow at the same time, like my body had become a place I didn't know how to live in anymore. I started crying over small things. A song on the bus, a sentence someone said without meaning anything, a plate of food I couldn't finish. The tears came fast, warm, unstoppable. I wiped them before anyone saw, but my throat stayed tight all day. Jade's profile quietly became part of my mornings. I checked it as soon as I opened my eyes. Every new post made my stomach sink a little more, as if she knew exactly what destroyed me and posted it on purpose. Movie nights, inside jokes, captions that only hurt if you knew the story. My friends started noticing something was wrong. They asked if I was eating, if I needed to talk. I smiled weakly and said I was fine, while my hands trembled when I tried to drink coffee. My body gave away everything I was trying to hide. I didn't know where Ava ended and the pain began. Noah stayed in my life in the cruelest way possible. Warm replies one day, cold silence the next. He kept me close enough to hope and far enough to break. My heart raced every time my phone buzzed and collapsed when it wasn't him. I tried convincing myself I could move on, that I was strong enough to survive someone who was never truly mine. But opening Instagram ruined every attempt. Jade posted lines about choices, inevitable endings, letting go. They were just words to anyone else. To me, they felt written directly for the girl he had left behind. I wasn't looking for anything when it happened. I was just scrolling, trying to distract my mind. But the algorithm is cruel to people who hurt. An old picture of Jade showed up in my Explore tab, like it had been chosen for me. I clicked without thinking, and my heart sped up before I understood why. I didn't open her stories. I would never do that. I would never give her the satisfaction of knowing I was watching. But the photo in her feed had something it shouldn't have. A like from Noah. I didn't know if he liked it when they were together, or if he had liked it now. Instagram didn't show clear dates, and that was what destroyed me most. I stared at that like as if it were a riddle. If it was old, he had been divided since the beginning. If it was new, he still thought about her while talking to me. Both answers hurt the same. I spent the rest of the afternoon pretending nothing had happened, walking around campus without hearing anything people said. My body felt heavy, like I was carrying a truth I couldn't prove, a new kind of loneliness, the kind you can't explain to anyone, the pain of knowing too much and not being able to say anything, the pain of seeing exactly what you feared. At night, as always, I was the one who texted first. I asked how he was, said something small, just to start a conversation. He replied fast, sweet in a way that felt fake. The same pull and release that kept me from leaving and kept me from staying. When I put my phone down, my chest sank hard. I was trapped in the doubt, in the like, in everything it could mean, in everything it already meant. And I realized the worst part wasn't losing Noah. It was suspecting I never had him at all. Sitting on the grass near campus one afternoon, I realized I couldn't keep falling apart alone anymore. I called Lucas, one of the few friends I truly trusted. He already knew I wasn't doing well, but he had never heard the whole story. So I told him everything. I talked about Jade, the liked post, the line about reason and heart. My voice shook even when I tried to sound steady. He stayed quiet for a few seconds, looking at me like he was fitting pieces of a puzzle together. Then he suggested something that made my chest tighten. What if I added Jade? I said no right away. I would never give her that kind of power. Never let her see me watching. That's when he said he could do it for me. He could step into the story as just another curious guy. At first, it sounded ridiculous. Then it made too much sense. Lucas was handsome, confident, the type who drew attention without trying. If I was right about Jade, she wouldn't resist a little new attention. And if I was wrong, at least I'd finally stop inventing monsters in my head. He added Jade on Instagram that same night. She accepted way too fast for someone supposedly involved with Noah. Within days, she was replying to his stories, sending emojis, starting little conversations. I watched everything through Lucas's phone, my heart racing like it wanted to escape my chest. Each message she sent felt like proof of what I had sensed but couldn't confirm. She liked being desired more than she liked desiring anyone. The conversations grew bolder. A compliment here, a joke there, a photo sent privately. Then one day, out of nowhere, she wrote that with Noah there was only affection left, that the chemistry had died a long time ago. That sometimes he felt more like a habit than a feeling. My whole body heated from the inside. It wasn't relief, it was anger. Anger at being destroyed by someone who didn't even love him. Anger for begging for scraps while she played with power. Anger at realizing I had never been her real enemy. She just needed someone to beat. Lucas looked at me, waiting for my reaction. I just stared at the screen, feeling something inside me burn and harden at the same time. And I didn't know it yet. But this was the part that would hurt the most, because when I showed him the truth, Noah would rather call me dramatic than admit who she really was. I spent the entire night rehearsing what I needed to say. Every sentence came out different than the one before. I wanted to sound firm. I wanted to sound in control. I wanted to prove I wasn't a fool. But the more I practiced, the more my voice shook. It felt like I was about to hand over a living piece of myself. And I knew that if he didn't believe me, I would fall apart right there. I texted him asking if we could talk. He replied after minutes that felt like hours. He told me to explain everything right there, as if I were asking for something simple. My chest tightened. Even so, I took a breath and told him everything. I told him about Jade, about Lucas, about the conversations. I told him about her confession, saying there was nothing left but affection. Noah took a long time to respond, long enough for my whole body to tense up. When the message finally came, a cold wave ran up my spine. He said Jade had figured out Lucas's profile was my setup. He said she only said those things to provoke me. He said I always blew everything out of proportion. He said I needed to stop inventing drama. I stared at the screen as if he had ripped something out of me. My heart was pounding, but it wasn't pain. It was disbelief. It was shame. It was the feeling of exposing a wound only for someone to laugh at it. My hands trembled with anger and humiliation at the same time. I tried again, tried to make him understand the obvious, but he didn't want to hear it. He said Jade was honest. He said she was hurt by my invasion. He said he wasn't going to listen to accusations. And he ended by saying that if I wanted to move on, then I should move on. I felt something inside me break. Not because he chose Jade, but because he believed I would humiliate myself like that for nothing. He chose to trust the woman who wounded me instead of the one who still cried for him. And in that exact moment, something inside me shifted. I saw who he truly was. And for the first time, I felt that maybe I could survive without him. The days after that conversation had no color. Not black like before, just gray. The pain wasn't sharp anymore. It was dull and constant, like a bruise that refused to fade. I walked across campus feeling like I was dragging a shadow. I didn't cry, but I didn't feel relief either. I started forgetting to check my phone, not on purpose, but from exhaustion. It was like my body had given up on suffering the same way. I still thought about Noah, of course, but the thoughts came slower, less explosive, more empty. I tried filling my days with simple things, going to class, having coffee, replying to random messages, but everything echoed inside an empty room in me. Noah kept replying whenever I texted him. He never started the conversation, never asked anything real. He only answered like someone fulfilling an old duty, sometimes sweet, sometimes neutral, always distant. A ghost of the man I had loved without noticing. I sent him silly comments just to see if he was still there. He replied, and a weak warmth flickered in my chest, then died in less than 2 minutes. That was how I realized the bond was unraveling, not from a big decision, but from where. Sometimes I caught myself staring at the mirror trying to find something of me. My face looked the same, but my eyes didn't. They had lost that anxious shine that kept waiting for someone. It felt like I had walked through a dark place and was still feeling my way out. Still vulnerable, but less desperate. Still hurting, but no longer broken. The silence came fast, sharp, cold, like someone had cut the last thread that still held us together. I knew the plan with Lucas had stirred something in him, but I never imagined it would break him this way. The first days were brutal. No messages, no replies, no attempt to explain anything. It felt like I had stopped existing in his world. His wounded pride was louder than any memory we ever shared. Jade disappeared from social media for a while. Typical of someone who felt exposed. Typical of someone who needed time to reorganize the theater. But Noah didn't come back, not even for a second. And that silence, so heavy at first, slowly turned into a bitter medicine. I stopped waiting. I started moving in small steps. I accepted invitations I used to reject. I studied with more focus. I walked around campus feeling the wind on my face again. People talked to me and I answered without that constant weight in my chest. It felt strange not to be suffering all the time. New eyes began to notice me, a kind comment here, a shy smile there, an unexpected invitation for a group project. And I realized I was returning to the world. Slowly, in pieces, but returning. At night, lying in bed, I still thought about Noah, but his silence tasted different now. It wasn't rejection anymore, it was closure. And for the first time since everything happened, I felt life making space for me again. Maybe small, but real enough for me to breathe. I started to notice that something in me had truly shifted. It wasn't a revolution, just a quiet relief spreading through my chest. I laughed more during conversations, even when nothing was funny. My friends said I looked lighter, more present, more myself. Walking across campus no longer felt like crossing a minefield. For the first time, it felt like I was rebuilding something in silence. Some mutual friends of mine and Noah began dropping small comments. That they'd seen me with a new group, that I seemed better, that I was showing up again. I pretended not to care, but I knew those things never stop with the person who says them. Sooner or later, they would reach him. His silence lasted until the day I barely thought about him at all. And it was that day the phone buzzed with his name on the screen. A simple message, nothing dramatic, as if nothing had happened. He said he'd thought of me because of a place on campus. Said he missed talking to me. My heart raced, even after everything. My whole body reacted like it had been thrown months back in time. Part of me wanted to delete the message immediately. Another part wanted to respond the way I used to without thinking. I stared at the screen, caught between that old mix of longing and danger. I knew he wasn't coming back out of love. He was coming back because his ego felt bruised. A mutual friend later told me Jade had been furious about the whole situation, that she'd pressured Noah to cut me off for good, that she couldn't even stand hearing my name. Knowing that should have made me feel small, but something else happened instead. For the first time, I saw their entire game clearly, and I realized the only piece I ever had control over was myself. I took my time answering his message, not as a tactic, but because I genuinely didn't know what I wanted. When I finally wrote back, I was careful, almost distant. I didn't give him more than he gave me. And as the conversation slowly started again, I felt an old warning rise in my chest. If I wasn't careful, I would end up right back in the place I had fought so hard to escape. His return started slowly, almost shy, but full of that hidden intent I knew too well. A message asking how I was, another commenting on something completely random, just to start a conversation. Nothing deep, everything calculated. The kind of comeback that looked like affection, but smelled like wounded ego. And I felt that old thread being pulled again. Jade reappeared right after, as if she could smell any shift in the air. Not through stories, I would never watch those, but through targeted likes on posts from my friends, through carefully placed comments that reached me through other people, through her photos showing up on my Explore page, always with captions that hinted at victory. It was her way of reminding me she was still in the game. One night while studying, I got the first good surprise I'd had in a long time. A classmate from marketing, Ethan, recognized me in the hallway and walked over. Easy smile, calm posture, eyes that didn't need to prove anything. He asked if I wanted company on the walk back to the dorms. I said yes before I even thought about it, and a quiet warmth filled my chest as we walked side by side. We talked about simple things, nothing that hurt. He listened to everything I said as if it mattered, even when it didn't. And I realized I wasn't trying to impress anyone. I was just existing there, in my own skin, without too much pain. When we said goodbye at the door, I felt something light, something I hadn't felt in a very long time. Later, Noah sent another message. A loose sentence, weightless, as if nothing had ever been broken between us. I read it carefully, waiting for that familiar impact in my chest, but it never came. It felt like reading a note from someone who no longer belonged in my life, even if I still felt the echo of him somewhere inside me. It was strange how much less it hurt than I imagined. Still, the tension was there. Jade marking territory from the shadows. Noah trying to come back just enough to not lose ground. Ethan appearing like an unexpected light in a room full of dark memories. And me, right in the middle, trying to understand which direction my heart was starting to lean toward. For the first time, I felt like maybe I had a choice. He went from spaced-out messages to small signals every day, asking how I was, reacting to things I posted, sending short lines that looked innocent but carried a hidden plea. It felt like he was trying to claim a place that wasn't his anymore. And I felt that more deeply than I could admit. Ethan showed up in a softer way, sitting near me in class, asking about my day with a kind of interest that wasn't forced, sometimes waiting for me after lectures just to walk me back to the dorm. And every time he smiled, something inside me loosened a bit. It wasn't passion, it was rest. A mutual friend mentioned that Noah had been asking about me, asking how I was, asking who I'd been spending time with. He didn't have to tell me that, but he did anyway. And that's when it clicked. Noah didn't want to come back to me. He wanted to come back to the place I once gave him. Jade sensed the shift before anyone else. She started showing up in photos with people I knew, leaving comments that always found their way back to me, appearing in the same places Noah frequented, just to be seen. She didn't need to say anything. The message was obvious. She was guarding territory. One day, while I was walking with Ethan, my phone buzzed. It was Noah asking if he could call me. A tightness hit my chest, not from longing, but from warning. I stared at the screen for long seconds. Ethan noticed my silence and asked if everything was okay. I said yes, even though it wasn't. I didn't answer. And that tiny decision felt like a private victory, a crack in the cord that once held me. The world didn't collapse because I said no. No one died. Nothing shattered. And for the first time, I wondered if what I felt for him had ever been love at all. The days that followed carried a strange kind of quiet, as if the world were waiting for my next move. Noah went back to sending small messages, always dipped in that charm that used to undo me. He said he missed our conversations. He said he was going through a difficult phase. He said everything and nothing at the same time, and I no longer got lost in the space between his lines. Jade made her final move. A mutual friend mentioned she had talked about me again. Nothing direct, nothing concrete, just that social poison she spread through loose remarks. She wanted Noah to defend her. She wanted him to react. She wanted to stay at the center of the chaos. But Noah didn't defend anything. He only insisted on me, on our story, on memories he never cared for when he still had the chance. When he sent a longer message saying he missed my peace, something tightened inside me. It wasn't longing. It was a responsibility I no longer wanted to carry, a weight from a version of myself that didn't exist anymore. I replied hours later, calm, clear, no hidden guilt, no secret hopes. I told him I was following my own path and hoped he would find his. Just the truth, clean and whole. Ethan found me at the cafe that day. A quiet smile, an easy presence, eyes that didn't demand anything. He asked if I wanted to sit for a while. I said yes without hesitation. And for the first time, I wasn't afraid of getting close to someone. I only felt lightness. When I returned to my dorm, my phone lit up with another message from Noah. I looked at the screen, took a breath, and deleted it without opening. Such a simple gesture, yet it shifted something deep inside me. The thread finally snapped. The pain didn't vanish, but it lost its power. And I knew, right then, that the door between us had closed for good. The days started moving differently. I woke up without that bitter expectation in my chest. I wasn't looking for signs of the past, wasn't waiting for messages, wasn't afraid of slipping back. It felt like my mind was clearing space for something new, something I couldn't name yet, but it made me breathe a little easier. I started enjoying my own company again. I walked across campus listening to songs I had stopped playing, sat on the lawn without that familiar weight between my shoulder blades, noticed details I had ignored for months, the light between the trees, the smell of coffee drifting from the arts building. Small things that somehow brought life back into my body. Ethan kept showing up, always with that gentleness that never asked for anything in return. Sometimes he waited for me after class. Sometimes he just left a funny comment on something I said. Never pushed, never pressured. Just there. Steady, light, constant. And that constancy started making me feel safe. One day, he asked if I wanted to grab a coffee after class. I said yes without overthinking it. We talked for hours about things that didn't hurt. We laughed about silly topics, shared old stories, talked about dreams we almost never say out loud, and when we said goodbye, I felt a shy, almost childlike joy. A smile that stayed tucked in the corner of my mouth for the rest of the day. Meanwhile, Noah slowly disappeared. Not because I blocked him, but because I stopped answering, and his silence stopped being heavy. It became just absence. An absence that didn't hurt. An absence that meant freedom. That night, looking in the dorm mirror, I saw my eyes differently. They no longer had that anxious shine that kept waiting for someone. There was something new there. Something that didn't depend on anyone else. Something that finally felt like mine. And for the first time, I felt like I was starting to come back to myself. I started to realize that life has a strange way of giving back what we lose. Not in the same shape, not with the same people, not in the way we imagined, but it gives back. Sometimes through quiet laughter, sometimes through silences that don't hurt, sometimes through new versions of who we're becoming. I still thought about him now and then, but it felt like remembering someone who passed through my life and left marks that no longer sting. Marks that simply explain the person I grew into. There was no anger, no longing, just a strange kind of gratitude. The pain had turned me into someone I needed to meet. Ethan stayed close, gentle as always, not taking too much space, not trying to define anything too soon, just present, just steady, just real. And that presence reminded me that life can be kind when you stop chasing what doesn't want you. I began liking myself again. The way I walked, the way I laughed without holding back, the clothes I chose for me, not for anyone else, the silence I allowed myself when I needed to breathe, the woman I was becoming without asking for permission. One afternoon, I sat on a bench by the campus lake and watched the water move. The wind touched my face like it was making room for something new. And for the first time since everything happened, I felt peace without needing a reason. Peace inside, peace outside. Peace that came from me. I stood up, took a deep breath, and felt my chest lighter. Not because someone entered my life, but because someone left. Because I finally let go of what was holding too tightly. Because I chose myself. And in that simple moment, I realized my new life had already begun. If this story touched something in you, stay with me. This is a safe place for anyone who has loved too much. For anyone who has been replaced. For anyone who has questioned their own worth. For anyone learning how to find themselves again. I tell stories like yours. Stories that ache. Stories that heal. Stories that remind you that you are not alone. If you want to walk with me, subscribe to the channel. There's still so much we can uncover together. And maybe, somewhere in these stories, you'll find the part of you that went missing.